And now to politics and the battle for the growing Hispanic electorate, something both campaigns believe could push them over the top this year. Ray Suarez has our story.
The assignment is straightforward and really hard, getting Latino voters to the polls. Although Latinos make up the country's largest minority, about 9% of the U.S. electorate, they're younger, poorer, and less educated than other Americans in a country where older, wealthier, and better educated people are more likely to vote. But states critical to both campaigns, Nevada, Colorado, Florida, and here in Virginia, have seen in the last decade large increases in the size of the Hispanic population and Hispanic voter registration. And with just 2.5 weeks to go, these states are all close. In a tight election, these voters could end up providing the winner with the margin of victory.
Why don't you do 3 letters?
How do you talk to a population of 50 million people? For one thing, in Spanish and through a variety of channels. Bettina Inclán is the Republican National Committee's Director of Hispanic Outreach.
There's a lot of diversity within the Hispanic community with 20+ different countries, differences in generation versus first generation and third generation. So having a message that connects with all of them, but is also recognize the uniqueness and to be culturally aware is incredibly important. I think that's why a lot of our outreach efforts are so localized.
In battleground Colorado, that was a Juntos con Romney, Together with Romney event, headlined by Romney's youngest son, Craig, who's been hitting big Hispanic markets to speak on his father's behalf in 2 languages. Gary Segura, a pollster and political science professor at Stanford University, says the Spanish language outreach demonstrates cultural recognition.
The idea that a candidate would address you in your native language, or if not your native language, the native language of your parents, conveys a level of respect. It's part of symbolic politics. It doesn't have any meaning, but any policy meaning per se. But in the minds of the voters, it conveys a sensitivity, an interest in, a willingness to listen to the concerns of a population.
But for all their attention to getting the word out in Spanish, the campaigns are leaving out a large and obvious constituency, Segura says.
The missed opportunity for both political parties are English-dominant Hispanics.
It's really exciting.
English-dominant Latinos, they also would kind of like to hear something about Latino concerns in the language that they primarily process information in English.
Juan Sepulveda is the senior advisor for Hispanic affairs for the Democratic National Committee. He agrees outreach is more nuanced than just Spanish ad buys. His campaign calls itself the first fully bilingual one in history. All the press releases, tweets, and other media go out in both languages. As an example, on the Spanish language website, they even encourage web visitors to use this calculator to figure out their tax bills under an Obama administration and a Romney one. That's the same tool available on the English site.
Florida is a place that we know on the voting side, you can do a lot of work in the Spanish media and you will be successful in getting to a majority of our voters. That's not the case in Colorado. That's not the case in Nevada. And in Colorado, the numbers are pushing kind of 80% plus in terms of primarily getting their information from English media. And then when you look at the differences of ages, we know social media and the explosion there, the different blogs, the different shows. And so we have to be really smart about kind of breaking it down to all those different pieces and making sure that we're kind of having those conversations in all the different avenues. And it's more complicated now.
What would a Romney presidency be like?
Segura says getting it right is more complicated still by the fact that some ads aimed at Latinos are simply translations of existing English ads, such as this Romney Day One spot.
President Romney begins repealing job-killing regulations.
Spanish advertising cannot simply be your English commercials translated into Spanish.
Why not?
Because the message is different. The message is different, the cultural idiom is different, what a phrase means, whether it resonates with the population is different. That has to be culturally bound.
Both campaigns have opened the spigots on Spanish language ad spending this year. NewsHour partner Kantar Media CMAG found The Obama campaign has spent close to $8 million for Spanish-language advertising from mid-April until the beginning of this week. The Romney campaign has spent close to $3 million on its Spanish-language ads during that same period. On the Obama side, ad makers at the Democratic National Committee are editing testimonial ads, like this one from a Dominican-American vet who cares for her aging parent.
Ever since I was a little kid, my parents...
The campaign has also brought star power to bear. In English, from Mexican-American Eva Longoria, and with Cristina Saralegui, a top-rated talk show host known as the Spanish Oprah. Currently, Romney's Spanish-language ads range from celebrating the entrepreneurial spirit in the Hispanic community to blaming President Obama for a huge debt and high Hispanic youth unemployment. And in the Ya No Mas, or No More ad, a wide swath of Hispanics tell how, although they voted for Obama 4 years ago, he forgot them and didn't keep his promises.
A few months before
in addition to ads, the candidates took another route to reaching some 50 million Hispanics through interviews with the Spanish-language network Univision. Immigration was one of the front and center issues. Romney says he wouldn't deport the Dreamers, those young people who came illegally to the U.S. before they turned 16, and after an Obama administration ruling this past summer, no longer face deportation, provided they register with the federal government.
I'm not going to be rounding people up and deporting them from the country. We're going to put in place a permanent solution. And unlike the president, when I'm president, I will actually do what I promised. I will put in place an immigration reform plan that solves this issue.
In which the candidate sitting here with you
and
today,
Mr. Obama says, despite the DREAM Act changes, immigration is one of the greatest failures of his first term.
I am happy to take responsibility for the fact that we didn't get it done. What I promised was that I would work every single day as hard as I can to make sure that everybody in this country would have a fair shot at the American dream. And I have, that promise I've kept.
Latino voters are, by definition, citizens of the United States. Yet Segura says immigration remains an enduring front-burner issue. Even as foreclosures and unemployment in Latino families spiked, and by one estimate, the community lost 2/3 of its household wealth in the recession.
They might have been born in the United States, but their coworker, their brother-in-law, the neighbor down the street, that the identity with immigration is much, much more proximate.
But Bettina Inclán says the Romney campaign is placing a priority on economic issues as it reaches out to Latinos.
And they care about jobs, the American dream, and how under this administration it's become a little bit harder to achieve that American dream.
I think you could get into trouble as a campaign if you only looked at the polling that said, look, they didn't rank it very high, so it must not be very important.
Both candidates are making their closing statements.
This party is the natural home for Hispanic Americans. Because this is the party of opportunity and hope.
We are a nation of strivers and climbers and entrepreneurs, the hardest working people on earth. And nobody personifies these American values, these American traits, more than the Latino community.
A Pew Hispanic Center report out last week showed Latino voters support the president by a 3-to-1 margin, but are still less certain than other groups about actually showing up at the polls. So, although new Latino registration has so far greatly exceeded new registrations among whites, both campaigns are working down to the wire to make sure their supporters will actually cast ballots come Election Day.
Ray talked to political editor Christina Bellantoni about states where the Latino vote can affect other races. That's on the political checklist on our homepage. Plus, tonight's edition of Need to Know travels to Florida to see how the campaigns are courting Latinos there.